Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's daily devotional. So, for our daily devotional today, there's an article that was posted about 4 days ago that I'd like to look at. And again, I want to make sure that anytime we talk about current events, obviously that with these things, in addition to trying to avoid any connection to politics, that we also make it clear that obviously there can always be more to the story that's being reported. And so everything that we talk about from articles like this is assuming that these things are accurate and true, and there's not more to the story that may be going into it. But the headline for this particular article says Starbucks fired New Jersey barista for refusing to wear pride shirt, lawsuit claims. So I want to read this article. It's not a very long article, and then there's one passage I'd like to look at this evening. It's not going to be, again, our daily devotional today. The plan is not for it to be very long. My mouth is throbbing pretty bad from my dental procedure Sunday night, so I'm going to have to kind of keep it a little short. So it says, a New Jersey woman was fired by Starbucks for refusing to wear a Pride t-shirt because of her religious beliefs, a lawsuit alleges. Betsy Fries, a Christian from Newark, who started working as a Starbucks barista in December 2015, alleged in a suit filed last week that she was, quote, assured by managers that her faith wouldn't be an issue after transferring to a store in Glen Ridge early last year. But months later, during a meeting in a manager's office in June 2019, Fries noticed a box of Starbucks Pride shirts on the desk. She then asked if she'd be required to wear one, which would be, quote, tantamount to forced speech, because she believes marriage is defined by the Bible as between one man and one woman only, the lawsuit states. Mrs. Fries hold the personal religious belief that all people need Jesus, the filing continues. Mrs. Fries believes that every Christian is called to love and treat everyone with respect and compassion, irrespective of their religious or other beliefs. Fries's manager told her she wouldn't have to wear the shirt at work, only for a district manager to tell her in late August that her employment had been terminated, according to the lawsuit filed on November 19th in U.S. District Court for the District of New Jersey. A notice of separation from Starbucks cited in the filing said Fries was fired for violating the company's, quote, core values, and that she said her colleagues, quote, need Jesus when she was given the t-shirt. We enforce these values when we embrace inclusion and diversity and welcome and learn from people who with different backgrounds and perspectives, the termination notice read. Fries's suit, which alleges unlawful discrimination, is seeking back pay and so forth. It also seeks permanent injunction preventing Starbucks from failing to accommodate the sincerely held religious beliefs of employees. And then in a comment from Starbucks says, we are very aware of the claims by Mrs. Fries, which are without merit, and we are fully prepared to present our case in court. Specific to our dress code, other than our green apron, no part of our dress code requires partners to wear any approved items that they have not personally selected. So, again, there may be more to this story. There may be more going on. But it's important to note that this isn't the first time that Starbucks has been involved in a situation like this. And certainly not the first time, that we're aware of other companies being involved in situations like this. But I think it's interesting that the termination notice, it says, we enforce these values when we embrace inclusion and diversity, based on the fact that she violated core values and that she said her colleagues, quote, need Jesus. And again, there may be more to this story, but again, according to this, Mrs. Fries holds the personal religious belief that all people need Jesus. Okay, it's not like, again, just based off this article, it's not like she was specifically referring to any one individual about them needing Jesus, or that her colleagues need Jesus, as if she was somehow or another hypocritically condemning them or something like that. even still, that would be questionable basis upon which to fire somebody. But I appreciate the fact that it also says that she believes that every Christian is called to love and to treat everyone with respect and compassion, irrespective of their religious and other beliefs. And I think that's a great way to describe the fact that Christians are to treat everyone with respect and compassion, because everybody has a soul. And certainly, it doesn't matter whether they agree with us or not for us to love our neighbor. And certainly, Jesus never put any modifier on who my neighbor is based upon their religious or lack thereof views. And so I think it's an interesting situation that is situated here with this with the lawsuit and everything. And I again, like I said, let me be clear: there may be more to the story that's not being reported here, but on the surface, on just based on what we're reading here, I think it's just another example of people with religious convictions where if it doesn't match up with what society deems appropriate or politically correct or whatever, then it opens up an individual to ridicule, or in this case, possibly even termination from their job. The fact that she believes marriage is defined by the Bible as one man and one woman only, and that's that. It's interesting that marriage is brought in here in this situation. Certainly, the idea of the pride shirts carries with it the homosexual community and the lifestyle itself, not just gay marriage, but the idea of the lifestyle itself. And being forced to wear one or being required to wear one would suggest an approval, a personal approval of that lifestyle. Again, whether or not a homosexual couple are allowed to marry is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that the lifestyle itself, the actions involved, that is what is sinful. And certainly God is not going to bind two women or two men together in a by law into a marriage to one another. But I think it's important to note that while a company can certainly contribute money to causes, and it can represent the fact that, hey, we believe in inclusion of all people, that's fine, okay? And whether we agree with those specific causes or those specific things that those companies do, it's fine for those companies to do that, okay? However, when you start requiring your employees to do things that would seem to suggest, even if it's not the case, but would seem to suggest that they support those causes too, or on the surface that they must profess to support those, that's a problem. Certainly for religious people, absolutely. But I mean, it would be true on the foot shoe were on the other foot as well. If a company like Chick-fil-A or any one of these others were to require an employee to wear something promoting the Bible or promoting God in some form or fashion for an atheist or for somebody who doesn't believe in God, that would be a problem for them. And certainly, at least based on free speech and based on the fact that people have a First Amendment right to their opinions, I think any American would have a problem with anybody being forced to support something by their company that they don't personally support. Anyway, having said that, there obviously, as I said, this is just another example. We've noticed many others over the course of time that we've been doing the daily devotionals. But there is one passage that I'd like to consider with you this evening very quickly, and it's from Daniel chapter 3. We're familiar with the story or with the account of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And certainly there are tons of other scriptures we could look at. We could look at 1 Corinthians chapter 6. We could look at 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 12. All who desire to live godly will suffer persecution. But Daniel chapter 3 gives us an example of three individuals who understood what the law, what the king said, what was supposed to be done, but based on their religious convictions, they refused. And so obviously, the precursor to all of this, going back the first 11 verses, there is a golden idol, a golden statue, presumably of Melchizedek or of one of their gods, that everyone is to worship at a certain time. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not, obviously, because they do not worship graven images according to the commandment of God. But it goes on to say, there are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now if you are ready at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery, in symphony with all kinds of music, and you fall down and worship the image that I have made, good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, verse 16, answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. And of course, the rest of the account, Nebuchadnezzar gets angry. He orders the furnace to be put even hotter than it normally is. They're thrown in, and of course, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are spared by God. There would appear to have been an angel who was in there with them. There were 4 people that were seen inside the furnace. And of course, Nebuchadnezzar kind of realizes at the end, in fact, comes to praise Jehovah because of the power he shows. But obviously, the conviction with which Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, in the face of someone who had presumably power of life and death over them, they acknowledged God's right to say yes or no to sparing them. But regardless, it didn't make any difference, because regardless of what God chose to do regarding sparing them or not, and they didn't know for sure God would, but in verse 18, we will not serve your gods. Why? Because Jehovah says. And even though this isn't a government type of analogy here or situation regarding the Starbucks thing, there is certainly a lot of pressure, a lot of peer pressure from, and again, Starbucks is only but one example. And I don't want people to think that I'm advocating boycotting Starbucks or anything like that. Obviously, you get into that line of thinking and you have to start to be not be hypocritical. You would have to boycott every company that offers up money to these causes or claims to support this or that. And you get into that line of thinking, and it's just not practical. And certainly boycotting it isn't. That's not the way to go with that. And we focus on truth. We focus on helping people to become educated on what God wants. And if they choose to obey, great. If not, then they don't. But at least they've had that opportunity. And certainly here, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they make it clear to Nebuchadnezzar, we're not going to bow to this statue. That obviously is the basis upon the commandment of God of not worshiping idols or any graven images. And obviously God did spare them, and at the same time he taught Nebuchadnezzar. Of course, Nebuchadnezzar needed even more help later, but certainly this is part of what they had to learn and or part of what Nebuchadnezzar had to learn, and what Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were willing to do because of their faith and their conviction in God. So it just goes to show that there are this is obviously not. Sometimes we think about this generation, this time period being hard for Christians with regard to jobs and pressure of society, but this is nothing new. And obviously, in many ways, despite how much worse it seems to be getting, we're not yet at the point in our country of suffering physically, or at least not having our lives threatened. Whereas in times past, obviously people who had religious convictions were threatened with their lives and were killed for their faith, going back to first century Christians. Despite how much pressure we may feel at work or at school because of our faith, this is part of the reason why the Hebrew writer gives a list of all these people of faith that were willing to go through such terrible times to show that we're not alone. We have people people of faith, brothers and sisters in faith, who have been there, they've done that, and they have come through, whether they were physically fine or physically suffered or physically died. Spiritually, they came through faithfully, and we have to look to their example to help us with that as well. All right, everybody, that's the daily devotional for you today. I'm sorry if I sound a little tired or what. I'm not really tired. I can't really enunciate all that well. My jaw's in a lot of pain. So also for our Wichita Falls brethren, just so everyone is aware, if you haven't heard either by text or by email, we are canceling our worship service or our Bible service tomorrow night at the church building. Normally we have a class period for about 20 or 25 minutes and then have a short service. So Wednesday night service is canceled tomorrow, as well as our class period at 9 a.m. On Sunday. So we'll just be having worship at 10 a.m. Sunday because of some kind of a spike in going on right now among some of our brethren with COVID and kind of concerns over that. So we're gonna play it safe. We're gonna try to do the best we can to keep everybody safe and be prudent and wise in kind of what we're doing right now. And so we'll only have our 10 a.m. worship Sunday. If anybody has any questions, just let me know, and I'll do my best to respond. All right, everyone, Lord willing. So in lieu of the fact that we won't be having the Wednesday night service, I will be doing another live stream tomorrow night. So normally we wouldn't have a daily devotional on Wednesdays because we have the Wednesday service. But since we're not having Wednesday service tomorrow night, I will be doing a daily devotional at 6:30, just like we normally would for a daily devotional tomorrow. So Lord willing, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.